All right. And welcome again to I Love Black People. And we thank you so much for joining on this journey. We're so blessed to have an amazing, dynamic, wonderful, brilliant, courageous sister that I've actually known her for years. We both attended Tuskegee University. We have amazing sister Keesha Crosby today.
Help protect us from racism and xenophobia by becoming an I Love Black People ambassador today. Join on iloveblackpeople.com. No matter where you are in the world, join us today and get access to the I Love Black People network. Special thanks to Banneker Communities.
Welcome, Sister Keesha.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Keesha Crosby. I'm the founder and CEO of T-GRS Solution, and we developed an innovative product called Sacred, which means software assurance, compliance verification, and risk evaluation.
All right, well, now that sounds real complicated. So I think to break it on down for folks, let's talk about the beginning story. Like, I think that's the pinnacle of the amazingness that is Sister Keesha. Tell us about, university, what's your background? Let's let the folks get to know you.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Well, as you know, we met at Tuskegee University. That's where I got my math degree. I went from Tuskegee University and worked for the Department of Defense Information System Agency, where I was a career intern, a computer scientist. And I went from a grade 5 to 12 in 4 years. And that's where I actually became what you call today a system security engineer. And
wait a minute. So now, what did you study at Tuskegee? And because I know you had said something before about crypto or cryptography.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Thanks for reminding me. So I studied mathematics at Tuskegee. I got a bachelor's in mathematics. My senior thesis was on ciphering and cryptography theorem. And that's how I got hired by DISA, Defense Information Systems Agency, to work in their, at the time, Center for Information Systems Security.
As how long ago? How long ago was that? I'm not trying to dig it, but this is,
1996.
Woo! So this whole crypto thing and cryptography has been going on for some time. So I'm glad to know we got some wonderful Black faces in that space. So that's what made them feel interested. So you got involved in the government. And what kind of work did you do there? If you can tell, it might be top secret. You might not be able to say.
Well, you don't have clearance, so I can't tell you. But I did do system engineering. So security system engineer before the term became popular. Today's term is cybersecurity engineer.
Okay. And then from there, what was the next steps? You went to some more universities, or it sounds like you already was super amazingly smart. What were the next steps?
Well, I took a couple of jobs outside of the government because the government wanted me to become a program manager. And at the time, I was still technical. I wanted to continue to do the work. So I left the government and worked at GTE, which became Verizon. And then from Verizon, I went on to work at Boeing. And then I left Boeing and went on to work at HP. And from HP, I started my own company.
All right. So you stayed heavily on the technical side. I think you're right. That's one of the things that can get tricky with us engineers. We do a great job on the tech side. Oh, so let's make them managers. Like they're not the same skills. Like one is one thing, one is the other, and they're not necessarily the same interests. So I think that's pretty awesome that you were able to make that decision for yourself and not let them make it for you. So once you were working at, I guess, at HP, since that's that step right before you made that leap of faith, what were you working in, and what gave you the interest to make that leap of faith?
Well, throughout my career, I tried to do the whole system life cycle. So software, systems, disposal, development. And I came to the part of my career where it was the glue for all the other things I did in the past. It was software security. Like, how do we secure software? And I worked for HP Fortified. At the time, they were the leaders in the market for doing static analysis tools. And they put me on contract with the government because I was the only one that had the clearance to go there. And then I started doing software security policies. I started looking at their tool more in depth. And I figured out, reason why we're not bridging the gap is because you're not putting the compliance needs with the software in order to make it something that they had to do, an enforcement activity. And so that's where Sacred came into play.
Okay.
HP.
So before we get there, and I think this is what I didn't do a good job of. If you were going to just give the basic definition of system engineering or what
Mm-hmm,
that is, so when you say systems,
mm-hmm.
and again, everything has systems, but in the context that you're saying, and break it down where the goats can get it. What would you say systems? And then after you give us that, then tie us into the aha moment with the software. So give me the general. When people say systems, what are they
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Okay. Generally, when we're thinking of systems, we're thinking of things that connect together, components that come together to make a system. But when you're thinking of information systems, you're thinking of different computers and networks and hubs and routers and switches and wide area networks and local area networks. So all those things coming together is a system. But underlining the system is the things that make it run. The computers, the software, the firmware, the chips, all those things are embedded into that, what we think of an overall system.
You are amazing, sis. I might just cry. Like just having you break that down and take information systems and information technology. You always hear IT, and then talk about what the system and its components. Sister, that was beautiful. Thank you. And
Okay.
now let's talk about your aha moment when you're talking about the firmware, the routers, the wide area network. What was the thing that you saw as a pattern that kept coming up that needed to be addressed?
So the one thing I saw is we had plenty of system compliance. Like, how do we connect systems together? What is going to make them comply to one another? Whether it's an accounting system or, IT system. What makes those two things connect together and comply? But what we didn't have is what makes those run. Every system is run from either firmware or software. A chip has software, what we call firmware, that programs that chip. So it's still software. Software is the underlying problem, and we still have yet to address it. We just put software in market, and then we say, "Oh no, your iPhone has an update," and you just download the update and you keep going. But then 10 minutes later, you got another update. The problem is we're putting buggy software out in the atmosphere with security problems and not fixing it, and hackers and malicious people are using those security problems to invade your territory.
And this territory we should see as being sacred. So, with that being said, you leave HP and
Hmm.
then start and because I know there's a patent in here somewhere. So again, the
Yeah.
fact I'm talking to a sister with a patent is already like super amazing. So tell me, leaving the corporate, developing, this idea to the point where it becomes intellectual property worth protecting. Like,
Hmm.
let's talk about that part.
Well, I mean, are the ideas I'm talking about new and novel? Yes, because again, we've done compliance on system, but we haven't worried about compliance in software. And reason why is because people are so, let's get it to market. Let's just make it happen. Let's just worry about the problems later. Well, when something is the foundation of your house, you can't worry about it later. You can't go back and repair your foundation and expect to build a bigger house on top of it. You're stuck with the problem. And that's the same thing with software. Because we've been building systems on riddled software, we're having buggy problems that proliferate throughout the supply chain. Case in point, what's happening with the oil and gas line. Hackers are using ransomware, known software bugs, to get into systems that haven't been patched or repaired.
Wow. And so where did you and how did you make that transition to go on that journey of getting a patent to the novel work that you were doing? What's that story look like?
So it looked like me self funding it. I figured that HP wasn't going to solve the problem because they were selling enough software. So I went out, I quit, and I started my own company. I used the money from the sale of my house to start the company. And actually all that money went into paying for the patent, but it's good money. And I went out to get this patent because I knew I had to patent my idea in order for anybody to take me seriously, for me to be credible, because I was an unknown. I've worked in Black programs all my life, and here I got to let everybody know that I'm smart, that I can do this, that I'm capable. And that was the first way for me to get credibility.
And how long did that take? And I mean, it sounds like a lot of sacrifice. Again, I think as we were dealing with, just solving some of these amazing issues in life, the layers of white supremacy ideology, racism, xenophobia, sexism, you're like dealing with like multiple layers of things, and then validation from a process that has in its own self issues. How did that patent journey, how did it go? What are some of the key takeaways you got from that?
So the patent journey wasn't easy, and it's not cheap, and you had to get the right lawyers in place, and you got to be able to defend your patent. And luckily, during the time my patent was being vetted, I had worked with NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, as well as DHS, with my business I formed, to create the first ever software assurance controls that was published for all the federal government to use, and even private industry that work with federal government. So that was giving me validation.
And then from there, what happened next?
So after I did that, NIST wanted to spin it off into its own standalone appendix. So 800-160 Appendix J became the first standalone, first ever published software security compliance standard. And then from there, I went on to do other standards like the Diabetes Technology Mobile Application Standard. And I helped FERC with their security standards, like their supply chain security.
FERC.
Oh, FERC, I'm sorry. So that's Federal Energy Reliability Council. That's the federal arm over all energy and reliability. So all power plants, wind, solar, air, gas lines, the Department of Energy has FERC be their commission to do all the standards for them.
All right. So, and I think even breaking it down. So, even when you're talking about these information systems, I think what you're really showing is that these things apply to huge things like energy, how we get our power. Something is volatile or problematic as nuclear energy. Making sure that's secure probably is super important. Or it could be something as small as the medical industry, where we're dealing with one person at a time, but are there underlying problems with the systems that connect to devices, with this firmware and the software? Are there any loopholes, and you're coming up with standards, you're coming up with ways to say, this is what you have to do in order for this to be right. You made what right and wrong is. This is the standard. This is what you got to have. And you're doing this in a way that applies across almost everything that we got to do in life. I think that's pretty powerful, if not like amazingly powerful. So the patent and then the company that you came up from that, what was your, I guess, market that you were targeting for it initially?
Initially, we did want to go to market to service software developers, app developers, people that one-off soft developers, and like the Siemens, the Medtronics, the people that develop, medical devices, as well as the power plants, whether it be nuclear, solar, air, or wind. We knew they were riddled with problems in their like programmable logical controllers. And we actually proved it in when we got a DOE, Nuclear Science and Technology, SBIR. We proved that Argonne National Labs had software out there open for everyone to use, and we found bugs in it.
Now, you just said some acronyms now, and we talked about this before the interview. Now we gotta do better with these words. I don't know what they mean, And again, I made our listeners are definitely probably smarter than me, but SRE, come on, help me out with some of these.
Oh, you're talking about SBIR?
Yeah, so that money that got you. Tell me what.
So SBIR is what they call a small business innovator research grant, or you can get a contract. Anything above $1 million is a contract. Anything under $1 million is a grant. So different agencies put different contract vehicles on their money that they give out. But it's a program that's competitive for small businesses, certified small businesses, to go out and get seed money to prove their ideas to the government for use.
Oh, and how much equity do they take?
They don't take any equity.
Oh,
They
wow.
take, yeah, this is free money, but you have to give them a copy of your software. You have to write a report. You have to perform at the level they expect you to perform. And then you're not even guaranteed to go to phase 2. Like phase 1, you might get 1,000 people apply and maybe 600 will get a phase 1. But in a phase 2, you'll get 1,000 people apply and 65 will get a grant. And that's why I was the first Black woman ever to win a phase 1 from DOE and a phase 2 from NAVAIR.
What's NAVAIR? See, again, you
So
saying this.
another acronym. NAVAIR stands for Naval Air Command. So it's under the Department of Navy, but it's the Air Command unit of the Navy. Going
Okay.
back to the Boeing with the software in the planes.
Gotcha. And those are systems. The software in the planes are systems, and they're connected to, I guess, electric mechanical devices, but as well as all those things are being run by software, and that software and firmware has to be compliant. And you're saying when these computers talk to each other to tell this server or whatever to do something, that information should meet some type of standard, or the people who created that conversation need to make sure that conversation between those two pieces of machines is being done in a way that meets a standard. I think, again, the things that you're talking about are super amazing. And I think so often we don't realize that we have brilliant people in our community who already who know this, who are working on these problems, solving these problems, and yet the image of the person that we think is doing this, it doesn't look like us, when that's just not the truth. So let's just keep everything truthful, and you are the truth, and what you've done is real. So let's talk about that next step. So now you've got the patent, which is, again, I'm not in no way trying to diminish how hard that is. That sounds amazing. I'm clear it's amazing. And even to be able to get the funds as being the first sister to do these things. Again, we're still in the place where we still have to be first, which it speaks to a certain type of government and system. And I'm not going to ask you what America is. We're both clear what America is. With that being said, how do you go from the patent to now a small business startup? Where was the, give us the startup story.
So all along, when I started the business in 2012, I've been working towards patent. I've been working towards credibility. I've been working towards funding. I did pitch outside investors. I did pitch Silicon Valley type investors. I may have racked up 100 pitches, but I never received funding. So I took a pivot, and the pivot was see if I can win an SBIR and use the SBIR money to show that the product is viable, that I have a customer base, that they want to use it. And so that's what I did. I just went that route because it seemed like the most secure route to keep the business going and to get funding and to get credibility and to gain customers. So that's why I went that route.
Okay. And then, so where are you now with that? And then how did that lead to you applying that directly to our community? So, we maybe talk about creation of Sacred, and then the applications of it, and then where you went from there. So
So
Sacred. So who were you presenting? Say what Sacred is again, and then kind of say
mhm,
who it's going to help.
benefit most. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I did all of this to create Sacred. Sacred, again, stands for software assurance, compliance verification, risk evaluation. I wanted to bring,
Hold on. Sacred is an acronym?
yeah, and the word is software assurance, compliance verification, risk evaluation.
Wow, I didn't even. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Break it down, sister. All right. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
So bringing compliance and risk to software in a way that, no one has done before, because I wrote the first standard. I am the best, the most expert person to do this. People can, copy, imitate, or whatever. But why would you go to someone interpreting what I said when you can come straight to me to get what I actually said and do it right the first time?
Go ahead. Okay.
And so during this path, I have a 16-year-old son now, but he was 8 when I first started this business. Actually, he was 7. And when I was trying to start this business and develop the software, he was like, "Mom, why are you doing that? You don't look like Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates. You're not them." And I said, "Baby, I'm doing this because of you, because of other brown little girls and boys that don't think they can be a Mark Zuckerberg or a Bill Gates because they don't have any example." And a lot of times I've been offered money to buy my patent. I've been offered money to absorb my company, but it wouldn't get me to my end goal of making history so other kids can follow my path.
Go ahead. Okay. All right, history. All right, trailblazer. We're about that life. So then tell me from Sacred and the people that you see benefiting from it, the most recent work you're doing related to diabetes. Give me the nexus.
Okay.
You're talking about power plants, nuclear, and now we talk about, something happened to my blood sugar.
Right. So, during this whole journey, I did get involved with the diabetes technology standard, the Diabetes Technology Society, who created the diabetes technology standard. And it's the first ever standard where UL and IEEE came together, and both of them ever put their stamp on the standard for medical devices.
Now
And
listen, the IEEE and
oh, okay,
Yeah,
UL.
and UL, like, you're gonna have to break some of that down for us now.
Okay,
So
so IEEE.
we don't dumb our conversation down, but we break it down. So go ahead.
Oh, understood, understood. So UL is users laboratory. And users laboratory, UL, if you look at any electronics, they're the ones that certify that that electronics is good to use.
I thought it was Underwriters Lab.
Oh
Hold on,
yeah, you're right. It's
I'm fact checking you right on the
okay.
spot.
Check me. I'm wrong. You're right. I think I said user laboratory. It is underwriters laboratory. You're
Yes,
correct on
ma'am.
that.
Look,
You are correct.
I'm a mechanical engineer, so I'm not
You
as
are
good.
perfectly correct, and I'm wrong, and I can be corrected. I was just on the spot trying to remember what that U stood for. Dr. Klonoff, the head of the Diabetes Society, was the one that brought those two bodies together.
Awesome.
Yeah,
And
and I
then
just happened to be one of the people he brought on to help with the
no,
software.
don't diminish that, sister. Look, you not only you help, you had already developed some standards in NIST and other places. So again, we're clear now. The correction don't mean that we're going to compromise. I'm clear who you are. So being a participant in that process led you to think of some other things.
So, while I was participating in that, I got invited to the Diabetes Technology Society World Conference. And the World Conference happens every year. In some way, shape, or form, whether I was a moderator, a panelist, or a speaker, I was participating in that. And this last call to action this last year in November at the World Conference, he asked me to speak on the digital health disparity, funding with Black women and women. So I spoke on that topic. But as I was doing the research for that topic, I also understood there was a disparity in the Black community as well as Native American, that we were the two races dying of diabetes. We were the Black people, Black diabetics get more amputations than any other race at a rate of 63% of their limbs amputated over any other race. Now, 37 is the largest group next to Blacks. But why are Blacks 63% of the time going to get their limb cut off as opposed to someone other race 37% of the time getting their limb cut off?
Wow. You just broke down some interesting pieces that were oftentimes talked about in a social economic way, even historical way, and relating back to a tech solution for it. So
That's first thing. And second thing is, you know, I'm open to all conversations and I can be reached at K Crosby, that's KCROSBY at T-GRS Solutions, SOLUTIONS.com. I'm open to any.
you're gonna say that again, and we're gonna get you. We're gonna have some acronyms to slow that down. So, but go ahead, give it one more time.
So I'm Keesha Crosby, Keesha Crosby, CROSBY. You can find me under Keesha Perkins Crosby on LinkedIn. And then my email address is KCROSBY at TGRiskSolutions.com.
So thank you again, sister. We appreciate you. And as we always end our shows, I am because we are. And thank you so much again.
Help protect us from racism and xenophobia by becoming an I Love Black People ambassador today. Join on iloveblackpeople.com. No matter where you are in the world, join us today and get access to the I Love Black People network. Special thanks to Banneker Communities.